Hello and welcome to the ATF Cast. That's anything that fires. Here we discuss science, firearms, the day-to-day, and whether you'd like it or not, we sure don't, politics. The bounds are unscribed, the beliefs full of dis, and the bifocals simply unacceptable. We are a pinch of a lava and a heaping cup of I don't know what the fuck is going on. So join us on our journey of nonsense and an attempt to learn more while we do our best to put on a smiling face, keep our eyes upon the moon, and ride the waves of entropy in this ever-changing world. I'm your host, Evan, and as always, we are joined by your vibrant co-host, Matt Halava. How you doing today, Pops?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
And absolutely. How are you? I'm doing reasonably well. Just woke up from a nap, so I'm kind of half awake. I'm probably going to talk like dumbass and a little on the molasses side, but I'm going to do my darndest.
Well, hopefully the molasses will heat up and the viscosity will change. You'll be fine.
Beautifully said. I could not have managed that in my state. Today we have a special guest. His name is Aaron Queen, a longtime friend. I've had the pleasure of meeting a lot of awesome people down in Louisville, Kentucky through the channel of my great sister, Bree. So one of the amazing people that I've had the opportunity to become friends with in the recent years is accept the opportunity to come on and talk about cameras and whatever the hell else happens to pop up in conversation. So,
nice.
If everyone could please welcome Aaron Queen. How you doing?
Hey, I'm in.
You're in.
I'm okay. Cool. You guys can hear me?
Yes.
Loudly and clearly. Okay, awesome. Happy to be here. Thank you for asking me to come on. It's nice to see you, gentlemen, and be a part of the podcast. I love the intro thing. It was great. I like that countdown. Your whole entire introduction speech was great.
Oh, thank you.
I'm excited, and it's also a little intimidating too because it just sounds so articulate and scientific, you know.
Well, it starts that way, but it always degrades into shit pretty quickly. So.
Yeah, you never know what you're going to end up with.
Okay, cool. That's beautiful. It's beautiful.
So how's the weather down in Louisville, and how's your weekend been?
The weather right now is kind of, I don't know, it's vacillating back and forth between being sunny and rainy. So it's frustrating for me because, I just got the motorcycle, so I love riding around. But you get up today and the forecast is 50% chance of rain, and you're not sure if you really want to go out and risk it or not. But there's that. And went to actually see, did you ever meet Isaac?
I'm bad with names, so I can't tell you.
I'm bad at names too because I've known him for years and I can't remember his last name right now. I think it's Taylor, but we worked together at El Camino, so he's been friends with Bree too. But he had a show last night at Magbar, and it was Magbar's very first performance since the COVID restrictions. So that was kind of fun to get out and see that and be involved in it, and they sounded amazing. He's a very talented guitar player.
Nice.
Singer. So that was fun. Part of my weekend. Saw your sister for a couple days. We talked about Mothman and aliens on Friday, I think.
That's
for a while, and that was nice. Yeah, because that day I actually could ride my bike and stuff. So sometimes when I'm riding around town, I'll see if her car's there, and I'll just pop up and see what she's doing. So I'll just randomly show up, sit down, talk about aliens and monsters and true crime for about an hour, then just leave and go home. But it's one of my favorite conversations I have every week.
That's why you guys are such great friends.
Yeah. We just get straight to it. We skip right past the small talk and the,
hey, how you doing? Did you what do you think about Bigfoot?
Wait till you see what I read this week. About Indrid Cold, which is this dude that's I don't know. Are you guys familiar with the story at all? The Mothman story?
Loosely, yes. Which I probably should be more familiar with it, being that Bree is both terrified of and fascinated with Mothman.
Yeah, it's great because it's the kitchen sink of supernatural, mystical shit. Because aliens are involved and these giant winged, scary men with burning red eyes. And the cool thing about the whole story is there's actually physical evidence to kind of back up a lot of the stuff. And I think that skeptics and scientists will say that there was a facility there that used to hold weapons and maybe even uranium grade weapons during World War II. and after, so they think that some of these effects could be attributed to that. But these people that would see Mothman would show up at the police station to basically, like, tell their story, and they would have pink eye. And they would also, like, and every single case for pretty much someone that saw them would have like this really intense pink eye that they were affected by a couple of days. And it was just like a really odd phenomena that typically doesn't go along with like a lot of these stories, because they're usually just anecdotal. But this like, so that was kind of cool. And we'll just talk about stuff like that. And how do you explain that scientifically?
The Mothman farts in their general direction.
He does, or maybe he just does it on their pillows, and they wake up and they see him outside, and he's just looking in. He's like waiting to see if they're going to like lay down on the pillow, and he's like, "God,
got him."
He's like, "Gotcha,
I'm out of here."
Mothman strikes again.
So now that you're our official resident Mothman savant, is that the right word? Halfway.
Maybe.
I
think that it works. I don't think anyone would challenge it.
Well, I appreciate that. I'm in good company then. What's ground zero of the Mothman sightings?
Oh, Point Pleasant, Ohio. Well, sorry, West Virginia, but it's like right on the Ohio border.
Yep.
Which is actually about 2 hours from where I grew up, and I just have never been. And I'm frustrated. I'm in Louisville now because like I've just read this stuff, and I'm like, man, I got to get out there. I just got to go look and see it. Which
I just got to drive over the bridge. I got to check it out.
Yeah, the bridge that like it collapsed, and some stuff was like really weird because it, like, that part of the story that all of these sightings and encounters kind of like led up to this catastrophic event where a bridge collapsed and 50-some people died.
Yeah.
On Christmas Eve.
Christmas Eve. Yeah, I couldn't remember if it was Christmas Day or Christmas Eve.
The author that went down there got a random call from somebody and was saying like this stuff was going on. And the guy that wrote the book is really interesting because he's very scientifically minded, and he will go to great lengths to maintain like empirical, objective research with what he's doing. He wouldn't disclose or divulge any of his interviews with anybody else because he didn't want to put information out there that he thought that somebody else could just regurgitate later. And he, as a paranormal writer in New York, but he has a lot of credibility, or he had a lot of credibility at the time and the way that he writes, blah, blah, blah. But he ends up coming down. He shows up because someone gives him just a random tip. And whenever he was interviewing people, this one woman that saw Mothman was plagued by these nightmares. And in these nightmares, she would basically just see running water with Christmas presents floating and going down the river. And he had documented this and wrote it before that this whole thing had even like happened, and the bridge collapsed. And it was just like this weird, there's just like this localized area of psychic energy. And I don't know, that's like the whole thing is really fascinating. And I'm like obsessed with that right now. And I don't even believe it. Like, I've never encountered anything supernatural in my life. My sister has. My sister's like seen UFOs. My sister has like experienced these encounters with spiritual beings, like apparitions, whatever. And I've grown up with her my entire life, but I've never, ever, ever seen it. So it's really weird that we have that like completely stark difference of perspective and also just perception in general, like growing up and living with each other, to where you would think that if you're in such close proximity to somebody else that maybe on a monthly basis experiences this stuff, you think that you would too, but I never have.
Well, either she's lucky or you're lucky.
I want to say, okay, right, exactly. And I would go to say that I want to say that I'm lucky because I haven't been terrified by anything irrational, but I also want to think that I'm not, because I can't imagine what that would do to my entire worldview. You know what I mean? Like your whole entire worldview would just be upended. It's like upheaval. And I was like, so I can't imagine it. My girlfriend does it. My girlfriend's seen ghosts. My mother's seen ghosts. Has Bree?
I'm pretty sure Bree is much more in tune to
Yes.
that spectrum of the world than I. Maybe it's maybe
Bree
the
used to
same.
see she used to see an old man in one of the houses that we lived in. This was before Evan was born. But she would see an old man walking around, and one night she was screaming, probably 2 a.m., something like that, middle of the night. I jump up, go running into her room. Her covers are on the other side of the room. She's little. She's 2, 3 or whatever, and her socks are off, and she. And, he keeps taking my socks. He's taking my socks. He's taking my socks.
Oh man!
All right. Yeah, this is creepy as hell. We need to move.
You just huh? You sure it wasn't a gremlin?
Some like that kind of
game. No, exactly. She's never. Does she remember that, or was she too young to remember it?
She might be too young to remember that. She might remember me speaking of it, but ask her about it, because she woke up a couple of nights terrified and describing the same thing. So it wasn't a dream. It was some freaky stuff.
Well, there's a lot of weird stories that came out of the Maple House. Like I know Andrea, when she lived in the basement, used to hear like a bouncing ball constantly that would keep her awake. And it was like, no, there's a boy in the basement with a bouncing ball. And the only experience that I've ever had that could be ghosts was, it had to have been him if he was the ghostly occupant of that basement. I was like coming up the stairs one day and like just looked behind me before it was converted to bedrooms and things, and it was still just grandma's like chaos storage. Like around, I just saw like a bipedal shadow like run across the back wall and sprinted up the stairs and was like, holy fuck, I just saw ghosts. I was like, no, I don't know about ghosts, but that was really weird.
Yeah, you have no idea what it would be.
Right.
Yeah, and then I think I don't know if it was Yvette or mom or something. I think when they were all still children, they saw like, it may have actually, not been ghostly at all, but there was like a man staring through the back window at one point at them. So
oh, that's weird.
That's creepy.
It's like a peeping Tom kind of guy.
Yeah, but I think it was more odd because he was like in a full suit or something, like more old style clothing,
like the Men in Black.
Yeah,
that's Mothman. Wow,
right.
They were coming to investigate the child.
Yeah, and I don't know. So the guy in the book, his name's Keel. He has this really interesting idea, I guess, or just like hypothesis to explain it. And it goes back to this Tibetan philosophy that is called tulpas. And essentially what that indicates is that 10% of this population are just kind of like naturally sensitive to like supernatural things. And he believes that like aliens, Mothman have always kind of existed on this earth that we live in, but they exist in a different type of like some sort of an ultraviolet like light, to where that it's there, but you can't necessarily see it or you can't perceive it. And they can make themselves known to like certain people, and certain people can just have a certain sensitivity to pick it up and see it. And the way that he explains it, and this is really fascinating, because Carl Sagan also has a book, and it's called Science in the Dark, I think, or Candle as a Light in the Dark, where he kind of goes through and dispels a lot of like mysticism and spiritual shit. And he will basically like point out the fact that like if you look at stories of like the succubus and incubuses and like the demon days and during witchcraft era of the world, they basically, whenever they would come to somebody's house, if you listen to the stories and you strip away the characters, like the basic essential things are still happening. Like the obsession with sexual probing, like with being taken out of their room, with like the whole sleep paralysis kind of thing, to where there's like beaming lights entering the room. And he basically, so this like author is saying that what they are And what these things are just like momentary materializations or manifestations of energy in these like certain pockets of the world, such as like Point Pleasant. And I don't know if you guys have seen the movie, but there's a part where Richard Gere is talking to Indrid Cold, which is like this being from another planet, allegedly. But he was like, "What do you look like?" And he says, "Well, it just depends on who's looking." Because, like, as we all kind of know, your entire, like, I guess, construction of the world around you is as a complete creation of your just mind. Like, your mind makes that up from scratch. It kind of presents it to you. So whenever you would see something that doesn't necessarily like fit into what you've naturally evolved to be able to perceive and understand, your mind is trying to like rely on something like some memory, something cultural, something that is like currently like zeitgeist. And whenever you look at technology during the 40s and 50s, and you look at Sputnik, you see this giant increase in UFO sightings and alien encounters and all of these things. And this author would go on to basically like allege or speculate that what you're actually seeing has been here since, the dawn of mankind or since life existed, but it takes on different shapes pertaining to your own
perspective.
Yeah. And yeah, right. Just to cultural themes and norms and perspective. Exactly. And it's like, that's kind of a fascinating idea that I'm kind of obsessed with lately.
That's pretty neat. It can get really in depth too.
Yeah, he does. That's why I really like reading him, because he's really accessible the same way that like Carl Sagan is in a lot of ways, to where they try to distill these more complicated ideas into something that's tangible and digestible for somebody like me that doesn't really like understand science at any kind of a great degree, but I'm still fascinated by it,
Yep. Yeah, I like Carl Sagan's explanation of different dimensions, as far as we're three-dimensional, but what if there are beings from a two-dimensional plane, right? So at some point our planes line up, because two-dimension is a piece of paper, right? So,
yeah.
It's flat, but at some point ours line up, or our eyes can actually see into that plane just for a second, and that's why they're there and then gone. But
yeah,
you should read about that, or he had a couple of videos on it too, where he explains it in the detail and very basic, and it's pretty neat. Makes your mind go, huh? So if there are dimensional beings, we won't see each other because they're too small and we're way too big. All they could see is that thin piece of paper of us, because that's all that could be present in their line of sight.
Right.
So it gets pretty crazy.
Yeah, if you're just looking at a flat piece of paper on your table, you can see it in its entirety and distinguish what it is. But as soon as you turn it, like you said, like sideways in a certain vantage point, it becomes almost practically invisible. Correct. But it's still there. It's still there.
And then he goes on saying, so what about fourth dimension or fifth dimension or sixth dimension? He says there could be so many dimensions. Us being a third dimension, we can't see the second, we can't see the fourth, we can't see any of them. So there could be multiple dimensions of fields of view all living in the same place, but none of us can see each other.
Right. It's vantage point. And
yep.
That brings me to this other point, back to Mothman, because there's like this whole kind of disruption of time continuum, because these creatures can essentially like they come to the conclusion that they're here to warn you that something is about to happen, and their presence there is like ominous. And a lot of the people that had spent time with them and were in close proximity to these creatures would say like, well, I felt sorrowful and I felt fear and I felt like all these different emotions, and they thought that like they were trying to just emotionally convey that there was some sort of a catastrophic event that was going to happen. And the way that he describes like how something of that like that can happen, and these creatures can tell humans or see something from a different point, he's basically just like, standing. He's like, say you're standing like in the city where I am right now, and I'm having a conversation with someone else. There could be a wreck that just happened like 6 blocks away, and you would never know. But from somebody that's on the skyscraper and can see 6 blocks away, they could radio to you and be like, "Hey, there's something that's happening right now, or it's about to happen over here," because they can see those events happen. And at some point, it's just like I thought it was an interesting way to look at people that can predict time or look at like those kind of events, you know, and predictions.
Yep.
Yeah, it's real interesting because, like, even like, you know, the mass of people don't necessarily believe in ghosts or Mothman or what have you, but I mean, almost everyone has either a family anecdote or something that happened to themselves that's kind of an oddity and they can't explain. Like Flying Rich tossed in the comments, he doesn't believe in ghosts, but there's a family ghost story that he knows is true. And it's like, I don't believe in that, but there's always these weird occurrences that we can't explain scientifically.
Right, and you can't just say that everybody's lying.
Right.
In the world that is and that's like goes back to that whole concept of tulpas, because like you kind of accept the fact that every single subjective person's experience exists within like an isolated point, and whatever their mind has kind of evolved to understand and see, whatever you've kind of believed, you can kind of grow and develop this like really rigid belief system. And the author in the book says, like, he was talking about some physicist, and he says like, hey, you can measure a circle by starting at any point, like in that circle. And he says that to kind of say, like, so when it comes to like some sort of spiritual, supernatural beliefs, because they are all so disparate, or they're also like random, he was basically like, once you establish like the fact that you believe this and you dig into it, it's only going to lead to reinforcing that and more belief, because your mind kind of adapts to accept that as part of your base reality.
Right.
So it's not like, what was the guy's name that commented?
Flying Rich.
So it's like, yeah, that's why it's easy to just say, or not easy, but it's just like sensible for him to be like, hey, I don't believe in it, because as far as his heterophenomenology is concerned, he's never seen that. He's never experienced it. But why? You're not going to think that somebody you've grown up with your entire life is just going to make something up. And even if it is some sort of a hallucination, like that's still some sort of an externalization of your mind, because like as far as your neurology works, like your brain with the visual pathways essentially just like can work from the bottom up to where it's going to basically just like look at a scene, piece it together as it's like analyzing things and constructs it into some sort of an image that you recognize, or to rely on memory to just like go from the top to bottom. And when those kind of things happen, your mind will just have some sort of an idea of an image and then project that to you like it's an external space. Like there are a lot of like crazy and interesting like grounded scientific explanations for why people aren't crazy or why they're not lunatics or something like that, because they've seen something and they talk about it. It was like, no, someone tells me something like that, I'm always like, yeah, I'm sure that you did.
Right.
I'm sure that this is very real for you and it's emotional for you. So I would never, discount something like that.
I like that perspective. And like, as far as the UFO thing is concerned, like perceiving the things differently depending on someone's nature and nurture. Like some people see UFOs as like giant flying mattress shaped objects like Dan Aykroyd's story, or they see them as like Tic Tacs or giant pyramids in the sky. Like they can manifest in so many different shapes depending on either, I don't know, your construct inside of your brain or just a vast diverse set of crazy sky happenings. Like it really
yeah it's cool. That I think one of the things whenever like the whole Mothman thing was spreading through West Virginia and multiple people would start seeing it, I think that there's something to be said about someone telling a story and then their mind already has this impression of what's kind of lurking out there, and as that fear builds, like you can see it, anything, and like your mind will just maybe relay to you that like, oh wow, you're experiencing this as well. And it's very interesting just how like hysteria can create that kind of phenomenon to where everyone is like maybe participating in a collective hallucination. Like, I don't know, but it's wild.
Yeah, it almost gives credence to the idea that like I don't know, consciousness itself is birthed from like a pool that everyone's kind of like tapped into, like a, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, we rely on it. If we didn't have, if language didn't exist, like how would we be able to even construct an idea of anything or have any kind of, or label anything? Or I think it's totally dependent on our social interactions. And that's why I think that's what makes it so malleable, and it makes it so like I guess you would call it like a plasticity, because it can always just kind of alter and change. And then like, so you can even take this a step further. And I don't know if you guys have any like fascination with like cults or anything like that, but even something like somebody like Jim Jones, and just what could lead 950 people to uproot their lives, move, and then participate in mass suicide. And it's at some sort of a point, our consciousness is totally dependent on that social interaction. And that's how powerful that is whenever you have everyone in your peripheral that you trust and love telling you something that you'll start to believe it, and it will become reality. They did studies, and I might mess this up because I haven't read this study in a long time, but they would basically bring 5 people into a room and say they were doing some sort of like a visual test, like you're going to get your eyes examined or something like that. So they would have one guy that was not a participant, and my bad, let me start that over. They would have one guy that was not an actor, that was just like part of the experiment, and 4 other people that were actually actors to be there. And they would start with the actors, and they would say, "What do you see when you look at this?" And they would be like, "Oh, that's a K." And then they'd be like, "Oh, it's a K." Or they would be a geometric shape, like a square. And they'd be like, "That's a square." And when it would come up to the last person, most of the time, he or she would just say what the other people had said, because you start to doubt your own judgment. When it's something as simple as like a shape, you will doubt your own. You doubt your own senses. And it's just like a good example of how powerful that is, that you'll doubt what is right in front of you whenever other people are kind of telling you differently.
Yeah, I see a lot of those fun social experiments like that. I know I saw one that was like people in an elevator. It's kind of the same thing. I think it was like 4 actors, and they would just, wait for someone to come in the elevator. And then the actors would like line up single file in the corner of the elevator, like nut to butt, just like, stacked there. And the people most often would be like, "Oh, okay, maybe I should just come over here and stand like they're standing."
Just cram in.
Yeah, and be like, "Oh, that must be what we do here."
It's funny, yeah. I mean,
there's a line.
Yeah, well, our entire society is based around like those conventions. Like you just like, well, you can't help but kind of follow along, and I don't know. That goes back to the kind of like the Nuremberg trials and the banality of evil and the Nazis and stuff. And there have been other experiments in America that were, I think, now controversial, but just indicates the same thing, that if everybody else is doing it, you're probably just going to do it too, because you don't want to be a pariah or an outlier or draw attention to yourself in an awkward way.
Like COVID.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and that can lead to, I don't know, humans following each other, of course, leads to all kinds of dark, crazy things. And
unfortunately,
it just makes you ponder further what exactly the mind is, and if Mothman is actually just trying to be your best friend, or what's going on.
I think he's a great guy. I think he's a great guy. Like the pink eye is like a subtle cruelty that I can kind of appreciate.
Maybe he's just been eating it off.
Yeah, it's not that bad. It's an innocent prey.
Yeah, it's just get some salve. You'll be fine, right? So just take the information he gave you and go with that.
And that's like, I wonder how many officers at first were just like, "No, I think someone farted on your pillow, bro." Like, and you don't want to admit it. You don't want to admit that, like, you just had a face full of fart. When you went to, and they were doing like the medical report at the hospital to treat you. And it's like, no, nobody farted on me. It was a creature from another planet. It was demonic. And it came to me, and it had these big red scary eyes that terrified me. It's not a fart.
Is the Jeepers Creepers monster at all based off Mothman?
It has to be kind of.
Kind of weird,
kinda-
like flying situation going on. He's kind of missing the beady red eyes, though, isn't he? If I remember right.
Yeah, he does. But I still think just the idea of this like humanoid creature flying was just like an obvious inspiration, because that was like it was huge, and like now we're probably like 50 years removed from or more removed from the event. But Jeepers Creepers probably come out like the 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's probably true.
I don't know, when Justin Long was in his prime. I don't know what that guy's up to now.
Yeah, I have no idea. It's weird when you just people get sparked in your memory again. You're like, huh, where the hell he's
Where's he been? Where's he been? I miss you, Justin. If you're listening, Justin, I miss you.
Yeah. Come back.
With our vast audience, we should definitely reach him in no time.
We'll have the
For sure, yeah. Maybe he can answer some of these questions for us about the Mothman and Jeepers Creepers comparison and correlations.
Nice.
Then we'll have two Mothman experts on. That's going to be amazing.
Yeah, that would be wonderful. Be wonderful.
So I know recently you got a motorcycle.
I did.
I know you're very passionate about that. Have you always wanted a motorcycle? Where did that start exactly? What kind did you get? Just give us the lowdown.
Okay, the kind of motorcycle that I got is a Yamaha Bolt. It's a 950cc. So it's kind of like right in the middle range of, I guess, power for a motorcycle. I've always wanted to have a motorcycle, and I've always been terrified of them. When I was in my mid-20s, my dad, as soon as I think that we were old enough that we kind of moved out and everything, my dad got a bike again. And I didn't know this, but he had ridden for years and years and years and was doing the thing. So I thought that I could try to pull it off too. And I bought one, and I just could not. Do you guys ever ride?
No.
Like dirt bikes or anything?
I've rode a dirt bike like once. I think I've been on the back of a motorcycle once.
Okay. That's like, so my issue was there's this thing called the friction zone, and it's essentially like when you're in first gear and you're wanting to accelerate or move, if you let go of the clutch to a certain degree, like the motor will just start naturally pulling you. And once it starts pulling you, then you can adjust the throttle and you can pull the throttle back. And when you start rolling it, it should take off. But it's such a tenuous thing that if it's not kind of perfect, the motor will just kill. And I would have this issue to where I would be riding on my dad, and my dad is just like, he has this like 1700 massive hog beast that just like will go from 0 to 70 in a matter of a couple seconds. And it's crazy. So I think that I was intimidated by that. And I was just struggling just to get out of first gear. And whenever we'd be in traffic, I would drop it, and I would just have like so much anxiety and disappointment in myself and stuff. So it was just like I couldn't get my nerves to, function with me and cooperate. So moved to Louisville. 7 years goes by, and I just decided, since I got a house and I have time to do it, and I like my neighborhood is absolutely perfect for riding a bike because there's no traffic and there's enough turns and stops and curves, so I can practice. So I just decided to try it again and overcome the fear. And once I did it, and once it became like muscle memory, and I just practiced, like it really diminished my apprehension and my fear, and it's just something that I legitimately like enjoy. And it's such an immersive experience because you have to remain vigilant at all times, and you're not like, you can't be distracted on a motorcycle. And
Nope.
Somebody like me that is easily distracted, and I do think that I have some sort of like undiagnosed ADHD or something like that. But so this has been kind of like a nice godsend for me that I have this activity that's just like, I'm not thinking about who's texted me, or I'm not thinking about what I need to do around the house, or what or some regret that I have or anxiety that I have about something I said the next day. You're just like totally integrated into the experience.
Yep.
And present.
You have to pay a lot more attention than someone in a vehicle, because someone in a vehicle is looking for, unfortunately, a lot of people are just looking for another vehicle the same size as theirs or larger.
Exactly.
They're not paying attention to something smaller, a motorcycle, Nana walking across the road. You're like, man, I turned left right into that motorcycle. I have no idea where it came from. It was parked. You pulled up to it and then turned into it. What do you mean you don't know? Yeah.
Well, since some of these people just aren't paying attention in general, not to take away from your point, because I think that most motorcycle accidents are just because other drivers aren't paying attention. Like, it's not, I mean, and if you like are going too fast into a curve or you overcorrect or something like in that capacity, then that's dangerous and that's like self-inflicted. But I'm pretty sure that most of them are because other people just aren't paying attention. Like you said, they're not looking for a bike. And especially like with the older people, because older people can't see a bike as easily as you can see this big car. I was going down Goss Avenue, which is in Germantown. So it's kind of just like this little commercial area and district. And this dude, I was probably about 20 feet from this road, and he starts pulling out in front of me. And I had enough time to like put on my bike or my brakes because I'm always looking. But as he's pulling out, he is literally like looking down at his phone with it in his hand, and he's turning, but he's not looking at the road. He's like, and he's pulling off like across traffic too. So it wasn't even just like, and I honked at him, and I was like, dude, pay attention. And he still did not look up from his phone at all. It's like he was totally oblivious to the world.
Wow.
But he's on our roads, ladies and gentlemen. Look out for this guy.
Yep.
He's out there. He's riding strong, and he is not looking at me. He's not even looking at you. He is not even looking at the road.
That is terrifying.
Be vigilant. And people do that, and it's not even their fault. Like I can't even be mad at some people because they don't intentionally want to just run a motorcycle off of the road or something. And it's a matter of staying out of blind spots. Sometimes like I'll ride next to a car if I know that they see, if I'm like riding next to a car and I pull up next to them and I'll make eye contact with them and they know that I'm there, I'll kind of pace with them just because like I know other drivers are going to see that car at least. And I don't know, it's like, it's been a process of trying to figure out how to ride safely, but then also have fun at the same time. And just let it rip.
Yeah, so it seems like a mentally, not exhaustive, but taxing experience. You find joy in that, like the logistics of everything? It's
fatiguing too. It can be, but man, it's like really rewarding. It's like and my dad says this all the time, and I'm pretty sure that it's like a common phrase. It's a cliche, I'm sure, but it's like the closest thing that you can feel or to flying, because it's the way you feel. It's just like going at that kind of speed, just on an open road. You feel integrated into the environment around you too. And I can't, even if I'm just like cruising around like 25 or 30 miles an hour, I'll notice things in neighborhoods that I would never notice in my car. And people and stuff, because like you're always like looking, and it's like a different introduction. It's like re-experiencing something that is, and I think that that's such a beautiful thing about life and getting older, is that you find ways to simplify and experience things simply, and it adds this richer experience that has always been there, but you just kind of overlooked it. It's like if you go through and watch The Office for the second or third time, you see like, you know, things you never noticed before. But
right. So, in that regard, TV show MASH. You know, growing up, I watched MASH. I thought it was a pretty funny show. So, a few years after I was in the Marines, I started watching reruns, and it's funny in a totally different perspective, because when I was growing up, I obviously wasn't in the military. Now I'm catching all the military jokes and things too. So it was almost watching an entirely new show, even though So perspective does change as you get older, and it is nice to be able to see things in a different light and a different view. A lot of things in life become more beautiful, and a lot of things you learn off of. You're like, wow, that really wasn't that fantastic, was it? So now you know to steer away. So it's a growing experience. It's pretty neat.
No, it is. And I kind of have a similar story to that, because when I was younger, and I wasn't allowed watching TV at home because I grew up in kind of a strict religious home, but my grandma would let me pretty much watch whatever I wanted, and I loved Cheers. I watched Cheers all the time.
Yeah.
And I thought it was just so funny. But as I got older, and probably like last year, I restarted it again. And it just like all the kind of social commentary that would go on, and like the kind of like just subtle relationships and the nuances between people, and just like that representing like all these different like personality types and stuff that you kind of come across. And then like me as a bartender, seeing how they would even like depict or portray people and how they express themselves in that kind of a setting. And that dynamic was like just really fascinating. And it took me like to this different, more complex level with something. And it's nice as you get older and you gain experience and knowledge and like awareness that you can revisit those shows. And then like all of a sudden it's like, wow, this has this depth to it that I would have never thought.
Yeah. Pretty neat.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think I'm going to go buy a motorcycle right now. I'll be back, guys. Talk among yourselves.
You should. What if you got one? What kind would you get?
See, really, I mean, definitely something more on the cruising side. Like, I'm not going to get a crotch rocket or anything.
No, I like being comfortable.
Yeah, the like classic Harley layout. I've never been a big fan of Harleys, so probably I like the look of your bike a lot. So I mean, probably something more in that family of things. But I'm not well enough educated on all the different flavors to pick one out.
I wasn't either. I just kind of like was you. I prefer cruiser styles, but I wanted something that had like a contemporary kind of look to it that I guess also mirrors retro styles. And Yamaha Bolt does that really well. The Honda Rebel, they have an 1100 and it actually has the automatic transmission and automatic, like what is it, anti-braking?
Oh yeah, anti-lock braking.
Yeah, anti-lock braking, which is kind of cool. Which that bike's a little bit more expensive because they just released it, but in a couple of years you'll be able to get it for cheaper. I thought about doing it just to have an automatic, but honestly, there's something rewarding about mastering the clutch, and it's just like I feel like it adds to the performance element of riding a bike.
Yeah, like I don't think I'd get an automatic because I mean you're riding a bike and absorbing all these like new perspectives on the world. I think being that I don't drive a manual transmission often, that'd be a nice little like cherry on top to put myself into a different experiencing state.
Well, I think an automatic over time, if you're going on a long trip, it might get you zoned out easier, right?
Yeah, for sure.
To engage all the time keeps you awake better.
Yeah, I think so. That's a good point. That's a great point. It's it has some like I don't know when I was reading about it, and I haven't read one, so I don't know how effective it is. But it was essentially like has a computer system in it to where if it was raining outside, you would put it on a rain setting, and it would basically only allow you to take the bike up to certain speeds, and it would keep it within a certain gear range so that you are less likely to kind of hydroplane or skid.
Yeah.
Which that is the whole physics of motorcycling is interesting, and I can't quite understand. I was watching a video today about how to properly take a turn, and in a lot of turn curve, not necessarily turn, but more of a curve because you're not coming to a stop. But in a lot of the training schools, they kind of teach this method that you will slow down and look and then accelerate all the way through the curve. And they were talking about why that's kind of just like dangerous and it's something you don't want to do because, like, one, you could overestimate the curve because you can't see all the way around it. So you don't want to like accelerate like initially. And a lot of accidents happen that way. Because of like the bike always wants to stay up because it's centrifugal force, and you have gravity acting against it, and you have like the grip and the friction on the road, and then the centrifugal force like pushes up against the other side of the bike, so it actually keeps it from tumbling down. You can keep your bike at like pretty much a 45-degree angle or maybe even lower. Sometimes when I take curves, like my pegs will scrape against the road, and you're staying there because you have gravity and centrifugal force pushing against each other. So it's like, to me, that's kind of a fascinating thing whenever you're on a motorcycle and everything around you is essentially just atmosphere and ether. It's like it feels immaterial, but there's this like force that's just keeping you like locked in there, almost like that there's a physical barrier or walls like pushing against each other. And it's just like one of the most fascinating things about just the world that we live in too. And it's exhilarating too. It feels great. Like because I live in Iroquois Park, there are all these great curves. So I could just gradually get used to like picking up speed and doing it more and more. And once you kind of like experience that phenomena, like it's just kind of wild because it seems almost impossible. You know what I mean? Like it's almost like it's just mind blowing.
Like it shouldn't work.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Like why is this happening?
Yeah, Bumblebee isn't supposed to fly, but you see them fly all the time.
Right. Yeah. That's wild. I never even, because like their body weight has to outweigh their wingspan, and right?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah.
I
Their
don't
wings
understand.
mathematically way too small for their mass and weight distribution.
Are their wings just that fast or something? Like, how does it work?
Magic.
Man, I got some research to do. Our next podcast should just be about bumblebees, because now I'm just like, what?
I honestly would not be opposed to a Bumblebee deep dive in the slightest. That sounds like a great time.
I feel like if a bumblebee can fly and defy all those like physical odds, then Mothman could exist, you know?
Yeah, and the universe is
like
a simulation.
Reinvigorate. So, yeah, it's wild. There's actually two, like, because I'm going to just jump back to the Mothman thing for 1 second. There was a sighting in Louisville, and it was actually like written up into the Courier Journal in Louisville about these two men that saw this like humanoid big ass bird like flying around. Because the book goes through and it's just talking about like all the different sightings across the world that have been like Mothman-ish, not necessarily like dark eyes, but just like these huge humanoid things with wings. And it shouldn't work because I was reading, and I think the term is a orthodontor, and I think it's like, I think that's what it is. I'm not sure, because like it's a study of like things that kind of use wings to fly, and the only human that has ever successfully done it, like I think just glided maybe 20 feet off the ground for about 90 feet or 100 feet or something like that, but no one has ever been, because like obviously like birds can fly because they have little density, like low density in their bones.
Yeah, and like hollow bones.
Yeah, but I wish I would have had this like more worked out for this podcast, because I would really like to know if it's been like, if someone's collected data for how many people have died trying to fly with wings that they've constructed themselves. Haven't like fallen to their deaths, you know, because I'm sure, like, I know that some people have, because I was reading about very specific examples, but I don't know where I'd have to be at in my life that I'm willing to sacrifice my life for just to prove that this ridiculous invention works. That really has low practicality.
Yeah, I mean, you got a meth head wearing 4 kites, and or I mean, you got the Darwin Awards. I'm sure there's probably a few of them in there. They're like, oh yeah, when I was a kid, I used to jump off my parents' house with a blankie and land like a parachute. No, you didn't. Oh, sure, I'll jump off of this skyscraper. Hi. right?
Bye.
So, yeah.
That's
To be
what it's
fair.
all about.
Yeah. See ya. Sorry about that.
I jumped
One
out
time
of
when
the.
they were kids, some bully was like, "Oh bullshit, you didn't do that," and they spent their entire life just like proving them wrong. I'm gonna build fucking wings
Right.
every day, every night, and I'm gonna look him up. I'm gonna give him a call and say, "Hey, look out your window right now."
Flying
Flat.
birds.
Yeah, I mean, I jumped out of a tree with a sheet as a parachute. But to be fair, I knew it wasn't going to work. It was because of teenage male adolescent boredom.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's one of
and
that example.
just male self-destruction.
Exactly.
What else do you do when you're a kid? You just hurt yourself and giggle about it.
Yeah.
You do. You're just like you get the impulse, and you're just like, I'm not going to be a bitch and not do it.
Exactly.
I can't get roasted by my friends.
No. But also, you don't care that you might be in some sort of a cast for a few weeks because that's about the principle. It's all about your pride.
Oh yeah, you're young and invincible.
Yeah.
And of all the dumb stuff I've done, I've never broken a bone. Look at that.
I've never broken a bone either.
Hey.
Have you, Matt?
I've broken several.
Oh, okay.
Let's hear the list.
Probably I was growing up, because growing up, it's like, okay, I'll jump from one tree to another.
Mhm.
And, only one time did a branch break on me when I was trying to make it into the other tree. So there's some bouncing there, but I didn't break anything that I know of. It wasn't until much later in life that I started breaking things.
Wow.
So much to look forward to.
I was never that bold, but I look back at my childhood now that you're saying that and think I really missed out. Like I really missed an opportunity to do something cool. Jumping from limb to limb. I saw a squirrel do that yesterday, and I was just like, man, that squirrel's free. That squirrel's free.
All right, it's time to get off the bike and start jumping limb to limb.
Okay, all right. And that reminds me of those people, the fly suits, have you seen that? Where they base jump, but they wear those suits and they just like cruise. But it's really it's really dangerous. I don't know if I could do it.
That'd be awesome. I would love that.
All right, so if I buy a motorcycle, we also both have to buy wingsuits, and we will ride our motorcycles to cliffs and wingsuit off of them, and it'll be great. Yeah,
that's beautiful.
And the motorcycle's got to be on bungee cords, so after you go over, you don't want to waste your money.
Oh,
they'll just bounce back up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or we get the motorcycles wingsuits, and we just like cruise all the way
your
down.
way through the air.
We just willy down, yeah. You just pop the clutch and go once you hit the road.
I think we have found ourselves at quite the business opportunity here, boys.
And this is how it pretty much answers our question of how people just died, like doing these ridiculous things because we're just like, oh, we got to do it. It's just how it escalates,
Yeah.
I've never even jumped out of a plane. Have you guys?
I have not.
I've luckily through my Marine Corps career, I got to jump out of multiple planes and helicopters, and so good time.
Is that exhilarating?
Absolutely. It is very exhilarating until the chute opens up.
Yeah.
You're relieved that the chute opened up, but you also went from 100 miles an hour, or the aircraft's doing 150, and you hop out of it, and then you're hauling with it, and then once the chute opens up, you pretty much just come to a complete stop. So, right? Yeah. So that little harness that's anchored between your legs, that
oh my God,
your body comes to a complete stop.
Dude, I bet the first guy that invented the parachute and tried it out, like, probably had to have his nuts just surgically withdrawn from inside of his body, because you probably don't think about those things until you hit that stop, like you said, 100 miles an hour to almost zero.
Yep.
Bye scrotum.
Yeah. You go.
Oh yeah, shit.
Yeah, the glasses I was wearing had the rubber strap, right? And Well, actually, they're they're military glasses, so they're all frame, and then just a little bit of the side, and then the rest of it is just a rubber strap. I didn't even think about it, so jump out, and then once the chute opens up, my glasses were like, whoosh. I was like, "Oh, that's awesome!" Until they come right back, just smack you right in the bridge of the nose. So it's a surreal experience on several levels. I was laughing. I was like, "What an idiot!" I'm thinking. Oh, that's so cool, because my body just stopped because of the parachute, but my body still wanted to go. But then they got to retract.
And then they just spring right back.
Oh, yeah. It's hysterical. Stung.
I'm going to try. I want to try it.
You should.
That's like one of my goals.
I would like to do some skydiving. 100%.
Let's do it. Can we do it in Columbus somewhere?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, at least like out towards the Dayton area. I know there's something around here.
Well, if you want to, we should do it soon, because my schedule at the bar is about to change, because we're going to be reopening in September. So that means I have a little over a month of Monday through Friday schedule, and then it'll switch back to probably like just all weekends. So I'm not going to be able to travel much. So within the next month, I want to come back to Columbus to visit like my sister and my friends and stuff. And if I do, we should try to see if we can arrange it.
Let's talk about that, because yes, please.
You guys will love
it. Yeah, you can go with if you want. We can all go, and we can talk about it before. We could have like if you guys want to do a podcast, we could do it, base it around that. Even though the parachute doesn't fire, it opens up. But I guess you could be like fire the parachute, and then.
Yeah, we use the name very loosely.
Right? Your rate's firing up.
Okay, sweet. Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, basically we chose the name and then decided we were just going to talk about whatever the hell we wanted to talk about on a daily basis. So.
And we can include the audio of me screaming for my life too.
That'd be great.
That can be our new intro. Instead of like the happy little music as it counts down, it'll just be you screaming from the sky.
Aaron screaming, yeah.
I hear if you skydive naked, your scream pitch, it goes higher.
I'm willing to try it.
Well,
did you guys hear that?
Jumps, you're going to be tandem with somebody. They probably won't want you to.
Yeah, that's true.
The instructor's like, dude, you need at least shorts.
I'll be like, man, I just insist. I insist.
There'll be a couple things.
I don't want my clothes strangling me.
Well, yeah. Now remember, lots of things flap in the breeze.
Yeah, that's true.
When
I
you're
guess.
Falling.
Yeah.
You're still gonna get smacked.
That sounds like something that would be really hilarious to just see.
It'd be an extra scream for sure. The audio would be worth it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure we could post all that footage on YouTube. We're gonna have to do a lot of blurring, but
yeah, there'd be a lot of blurring.
The views would probably be fun.
Yeah.
Instead of
I'll sign a waiver to be blurred.
Perfect. I'll have our lawyer type it up.
Waiver to be blurred. That should be a bumper sticker. Great.
Right? Mm. Oh, my cat's in here. Hey, what's up?
What's up, cat?
She goes and she'll just sleep until she wants to eat, and then she'll come and mess with me until I'll give her food, and then she'll just go right back to sleep.
I thought she was like, did you say skydiving? Let's do it.
Oh my gosh. I would love to just get her own little kitty parachute though.
You just hear chute opens up.
She'd be so pissed. Then I would if I gave her some treats, I think she'd get over it afterward.
Oh yeah, that fixes everything.
She might like it. She's cooped up here all day. Like she might like to just get outside, and her favorite activity is like watching birds. Her favorite activity, and I put it on TV for her. My girlfriend told me about this show that she'll put on. It's on YouTube, and it's just like cat TV, and all it is like birds on roofs eating and flying, and you hear them just chirping. And whenever I play it, my cat just goes like this. and like runs from window to window because she can't tell that it's coming from the TV until I show it to her, and then she'll just like fixate on it and just stare at it forever. So I think that if we did like a little bit of parachuting thing with her, she might appreciate just being one with the birds.
Oh, there you go. I am a bird now.
And she's like, I can't eat you anymore because now I am.
You're
as you are. Yeah.
Yeah, well, someone may see that and a cat flying through the air, and it would spawn a whole like decade-long conversation regarding the flying cat lady of Columbus. And
yeah, I think it would just be a great prank to just parachute cats in front of people's houses, just like 50 of them.
Airdrop.
And be like, what is going on? It just there's never an explanation.
Have them landing and dressed like Russian paratroopers. You know, like
that's
original
like
Red.
They're invading. Yeah,
Red Dawn's happening right meow. Well, we're approaching the time that I got to head out and do some work, and I know it flies. I promised our followers on the Instagram and things that we're going to speak of photography and some other things, which we didn't get to, which is just a lovely excuse to offer you come back on and speak with us again sometime soon.
Yeah, I would love that. I in the meantime, I will recommend a podcast that's called Stuff to Blow Your Mind, and they have a 4-part series about the invention of the camera. So they go over the camera obscura, and they'll just talk about like the physics of that and where it was used throughout history and how it was discovered, and then they'll transfer and make the transition over to other camera technology as far as fixing an image on. I think they would use sheets of metal at first, and like how they like the whole thing is fascinating because it's also something that just shouldn't be real. You know, like, and I was like developing a little bit because I have a dark room downstairs, and just watching an image manifest itself on a blank sheet of paper is like one of the most amazing and beautiful things that like you can see. So check that podcast out. I think it's just like history of the camera, or maybe it's like a special technology series. And again, the podcast is called Stuff to Blow Your Mind. And it's really technical. Yeah. But it's great.
Going off of that, I'll give you a suggestion. Also, I don't know if you ever watch Smarter Every Day on YouTube. He's one of the science communicators on there, but he just did an episode recently. He went to I forget the name of the film lab, but it's like it was like a startup endeavor. Some people that didn't want to lose the passion of film photography, so they started their own color film photography developing company. So he goes in and like films these old machines that they used to use when film photography was really bumping, that they had brought in from Germany or wherever. And I think it's called How Film Photography Works, and he goes over the silver nitride layers on the film and everything, and it's a good little 30-minute refresher on film, and really beautiful.
That's perfect. I'm going to watch that tonight probably.
Perfect. Send me some links, because I've been diving deeply into photography again, and keep finding all these awesome YouTubers that are doing live photo editing and how to do realistic black and white photography on modern DSLRs and things of that nature. So any links you send my way, I'd greatly appreciate.
That sounds good. Also, send me the stuff that you're watching as well, please.
We'll start a little photography-based link chat.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Perfect. Well, Aaron, thank you so much for coming on and talking with us today.
Thank you, guys. I had so much fun.
Me too.
Yeah. We are live every Sunday at 4 p.m. here on YouTube and Twitch, streaming live. Say Anything That Fires podcast. We are back. No holiday hiatuses or anything to be concerned with in the near future. And if you'll join us next week, I believe our guest is... I don't even know. I have to look at my calendar. Black Diamonds, Guns and Gear, which I should know because that's...
Josh and Josh.
Josh and Josh with Black Diamond. And if if you guys are free, you can tune in Wednesday for a little bonus episode. We're going to do a episode 10 of the ATF Cast redo since we had so many connectivity issues while I was down in Louisville. The outro music won't play, so imagine we're singing a beautiful song. Everybody have a lovely week. Aaron, thanks for coming on, and everybody keep your eye on the moon. We'll see you.
See you.
Bye.